let's start off with, why don't you go over Grandpa and his escapade with the Mexican army?
You want to know about that, huh? You mean with Poncho Villa?
Yeah. Okay, start from the beginning, like as far as, you know, his store, where it was located.
Okay, your
and
grandfather
what he used to
had,
do and all that.
yeah, your grandfather had, of course I think this was after he had married your grandmother, so this is after the fact. So, but your grandfather was raised, he was born in Guaymas, Mexico, okay? And I believe that he said he was raised in a convent, but I think, because he used to be an altar boy when he was a kid, and he was in the church all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why he didn't like the church, because of all the atrocities that he had seen of what the priests had done to some of these innocent girls. And when they tore some of these buildings down, they found babies and women buried in the walls of the church. And that happens. That even goes on today, Mike. But anyway, I believe that his sister raised him. I don't know why. I never could explain that, or never even asked him why his sister had raised him. It just worked out that way, I guess. And your great-grandfather, which was his father, was a kind of a rich man. And he owned, I don't know, a whole square block of buildings down there. But he used to get drunk, and he'd go to the cantina, and he would, when he got drunk and everything, he got kind of mean and everything, he'd take out his guns, because he carried guns. He'd take out his guns and he'd shoot up the whole bar and everything. And
This was his father?
yeah, that would be your great-great-grandfather, I guess. No,
My great-grandfather.
great-grandfather, yeah. And so that would be on your grandfather's side.
Yeah. Do you know his name?
Yeah, I think his name was Thomas Farrell.
Cordero.
Yeah, yeah,
Farrell.
yeah. And see, that your uncle now would be your great uncle, I guess.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, Manuel, your grandfather, his brother, okay, was named after your great-grandfather.
Yeah, I've got that on tape.
Okay, well, I thought I'd repeat that, all right? So anyway, being that he was raised down there and everything, he knew all about how it was, and actually I think he said he was raised around Arizona in a lot of places, and down in El Paso, and he spent practically a lot of his young life down there.
On the border there.
Yeah. And I think after the fact that he married your grandmother, evidently they migrated back down there again, and he had a cantina, and which is like a bar. They call them cantinas down there.
Yeah.
And he had a supermarket on the El Paso side, the American side. And he also had one down south of the border, which is on the other side of El Paso.
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico, which is Ciudad Juarez, I guess it would be. Yeah. And the city of Juarez. And he had another cantina down there, and what do you call a supermarket, right? Well, he used to, in those days it was a matter of survival. And your grandfather was he was quite an enterprising man, considering. And so he used to kind of play both ends against the middle, where, of course, you know, they had a lot of revolutions down there in Mexico. And so what he used to do is the goods that you could not get from Mexico, he used to smuggle them from his store and smuggle them up to his other store in El Paso. And the goods they needed down in Mexico, he used to bring them from the American side and smuggle them down that way. Okay? And he used to pay off the guards and everything to get through the border with it, so he wouldn't have to pay the duty. on these goods, see?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to pay duty, you know. Just like now, you pay duty on anything you bring into the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Tariff.
Huh? Tariff, yeah, it's a tariff. Well, the whole thing is, this thing with, I remember when he said something about when he was smuggling one night, he says, it was late at night, and he says that there was kind of a ditch there where, you know, like a little ditch or whatever it is, where the border is at that time, and he says the guards that he had paid off weren't there, and so anyway he's bringing all this stuff, and he says he spotted that, and so there was some soldiers coming towards him, so he got down in the ditch with all his stuff and was hiding down in there, and he says evidently they must have seen him or something, because they started looking around trying to find him. And boy, he said he was scared stiff. So finally, when they gave up the plight to find him, then he says then he scooted across and went and got up on the other side and got his stuff across. But it was kind of a close call.
Yeah.
Because in those days, you know, they didn't fool around with you. They just shoot you. I mean, you know, Mexico is a dangerous place. No, it still is even. They say no, but it is. So, when the revolution came with this here, what do you call this, Poncho Villa, you see, he was a revolutionist and a bandit, okay? And of course a lot of the people liked him because he helped a lot of people, but just like anything, it's just like Saddam Hussein, look at that guy. He helps the people that will help him, but he never helps the other ones. Well, he did the same thing to help his cause, see. So, but basically when he took the town over, naturally, the money changes hands. You have different money then. See? So the money, the old money from the old regime is worthless, okay? So he said one day, he said he was in the store there and on the Mexican side, and he says a soldier came in and he handed him 20 pesos, you know. And your grandfather says, of course your grandfather knew money like the back of his hand because he used to deal in money. He used to take money when the rate of exchange was higher on one side, he would take the money from the other side and bring it up, see? So he'd get more money for his money. Yeah. Then he would do the same thing from the American side and take it down there, see? And he'd smuggle money that way. So he knew money. He knew what was good and what was bad. He knew what was counterfeit. So when this soldier had come in, he had that 20 pesos, and I don't know, he bought something. I don't know what it was, tobacco or I don't remember what he said. But he bought some small item, right? And your grandfather looked at the money and he found that it was the old money and it was no more good. Okay? So he told the soldier, he said, I don't have the change for that. So he says, and the soldier says, well, he says, well, I want you to change. He said, well, I don't have the change. He says, you know, he said, we're a small store. We don't make much business here, so we don't have a lot of money here. So anyway, he says, well, I'll come back later and get it. And he said, well, I don't know if we'll have it by then. And so he said, no. He said, I'll be back for the change. You keep the money. And your grandfather was, you know, he knew the money was no good, but he didn't dare tell him it was no good. So later in the evening, the guy came back, the soldier came back, and he says, I come for my change. And your grandfather said, well, I don't have the change for that. And he says, you do have the change for that. And he said, no, I don't have it. He says, I don't. He says, why don't you just keep the item, don't forget it, okay? He says, it's a gift. He said, no, you're going to change the money. He says, well, he said, I can't change it. He said, why don't you want to change that money? And your grandfather told me, he said, I'm going to tell you the truth. The money is no good. That's money from the old regime. He says, the new money now is what counts. He says, you give me new money, I'll exchange it. But no, he says, you're going to exchange that money. He says, but the money is no good. He says, I would be losing. He said, I don't care, you're going to exchange it. And your grandfather says, I will not change it. And with that, they hauled him off. He had another guy with him. He says, okay, fine, let's go down to the bridge. And they hauled him down to the bridge. They got him up on the bridge. They were going to shoot him down there, or hang him, whatever. And about that time, I guess it was getting about ready to assassinate him, and about that time, here comes Poncho Villa riding up on his horse, and he says, where you going with my friend? He says, well, Jefe, he said, we're going to fusilarlo, means going to kill him, you know. Oh, no. He says, you don't do that to my friend. He says, no. He said, you don't kill him. He said, well, why are you going to do this? And so they told him. He said, no. He don't have to exchange that money. He says, no, you're not killing him. He says, I'm telling you. So they let him go. And now how he got to know Poncho Villa, I do not know. But your grandfather he was into a lot of things, you know, and I guess he knew a lot of people down there, you know. And but I mean, that's the story about that. I mean, that part.
There was another story. I believe Helena was alive at the time, and he was crossing the border, and they got caught in the middle of a crossfire, and bullets were ricocheting off the back of his carriage and so on.
That's when they were leaving Mexico. They had the revolution, and I think Helena and let's see, Armida was born in Arizona. Yeah, I mean, she was born in Arizona, so evidently it must have been her and Ming, I guess. So, yeah, and your grandmother said that they were having a big battle, a revolution. I guess it must have been Poncho Villa fighting to keep his territory, but it was Porfirio Diaz or something. Grandpa knew all those names down there. Anyway, they were trying to recapture the town, and naturally all the bullets in this. In fact, I have the original bullet that came into the store. It's that flattened one. Do you see it? Remember the one it's in a little sack. I got
well, you got a bunch of bullets.
Yeah, and it's in the sack, and it's in that. It's flattened out. But that's one of the bullets that came into the store when they were there, and so the thing got pretty hot. So your grandfather says, "Well, I guess we're going to have to leave," and so he says, "You better pack up." He got the horses hooked to the buckboard. And your grandmother took whatever she could, and then because they had to leave right away, and they put the kids in the buckboard and they laid down, and your grandfather whipped the horses, and away they went. And with that, he says, naturally you're traveling, you know, you go to the border. He said the bullets were just going zing, bang, just whistling across that top of that. So wonder your grandfather wasn't killed, because he's up on top of the buckboard, you know.
Yeah.
And your grandmother verified that, because your mom used to say, now, because your grandfather was quite an exaggerator. He was a great storyteller, that guy. But and then she'd say, well, you know, your grandpa used to call her George Washington, your grandmother, because she never lied. See, and your mom would say, now, Grandma, now is that true? And she says, oh yes, that's true. And she says, okay, then I believe it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's the story about that, Michael. And then I came back up to, I guess they came on the American side, you know. So, but